Welcome back to Something to Say. I'm Claire and I am a survivor of sexual violence. Today we are going to discuss navigating the institutions that come with experiencing violence. So let's get started. This video is going to be a little bit more informational than emotional compared to my other videos, but of course I always want to recommend to just be mindful as you're watching it. There may be triggers, anything can really be a trigger, so of course while we're discussing these sensitive topics, please be mindful of what you need in the moment and make sure that you're comfortable watching this video, and feel free to take a beat if you need to do so. Alright. I'm going to talk about my experience with the investigation process, and I am going to try not to get frustrated because it is a lengthy and emotionally grueling process. For anyone who has ever been involved in any aspect of it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Just a little bit of background about me. I studied criminology, so I was almost done with my criminology degree before I had to transfer. Not had to, chose to transfer. To get into a safe space. And I also worked as a translator at a law firm for 2 years where I translated a lot of domestic violence cases, and then I worked at another law firm for a little bit. So I did have a little bit of legal background before this incident, but I had never navigated it myself and I had never really had that formal training. So that was helpful, but it was still all fresh and new to me. And I really learned that I have to be my own advocate, and that is probably my number one tip during this process, because let me tell you, there is a lot of crime every day, and it's really easy to just get put into like that file and just be seen as one of those numbers, and you oftentimes don't get the attention that you need, and they think that's the biggest problem that I had with the investigation process. The first step of an investigation process is the evidence collection. Although the institution really should be working on your behalf since it is a criminal act, a lot of times they're not going to do that. I'm just telling it like it is. I'm not saying that this is the case for all institutions. I'm sure there are people that dedicate their lives to being an advocate for people, and I appreciate that, and I hear you, and I see you, but that was not the case in my situation. So basically, I had to gather all the evidence myself, and the evidence that I had was DNA evidence, surveillance footage, pictures of the lacerations on my face, a testimony, which was a video testimony with the lacerations on my face, an x-ray of my fractured jaw, the dental bills from when my tooth came out, witnesses, medical professional testimonies, the SANE exam, which is a medical term for a rape kit. Off the top of my head, that's all that I can think of, but I promise you that there were more, and that was actually not enough to bring into trial. So that's where I want to talk about the legal system and how to navigate that and how to do the best you can and not just get discouraged if it doesn't go your way. I'm going to continue to talk about the rest of the process, but I want to take a break here and acknowledge the fact that a lot of people report and a lot of people don't get the results that they desire. And because of that, that's why a lot of other people don't report to begin with. And I would like to personally reach out to those who feel the need to tell survivors that they have to report because otherwise they'll do it again. Okay, I'm probably going to upset some people here, but I want to say that as a survivor, it is not my responsibility to make sure that someone else doesn't act in a violent way again. Okay? It is my responsibility to make sure that I am mentally and physically safe. And if I feel like my needs are being met and I want to take on the challenge of going to trial, then that is my choice. And I don't think that it should be commonplace to be able to judge survivors for the way that they handle the investigation process, whether they engage in it or whether they don't. Because at the end of the day, it's not your actions that ended you up in this situation. and it's not my responsibility to make sure that someone doesn't perpetrate again, because it's their responsibility to make sure that they are a good person and that they don't act out violently. Going back to my experience, so I had all of those factors that I brought to the investigator, and he didn't think that it was good enough to go to the DA. So basically, I had two choices here. It was to get an independent legal counsel, which is very expensive. There are free resources. If there's something that, if you are a person that feels very strongly about going to trial, definitely reach out and look for free resources if you can't afford those kind of resources. I did contact them. Of course, there was a very long waiting list, and at this point, I was set back for months, and it took me 8 months just to get the DNA back, which at that point was when I concluded that the detective wasn't going to take my case. So basically what happens is he decides whether or not to propose it to the DA, because it's a criminal case. So then the district attorney then represents the Jane Doe or John Doe anonymously in court. If you choose to appear in court, that's your choice. You can remain anonymous. But it's that lapse right there where if you can't get past the detective to propose it to the DA, then it's a little bit difficult to be your own advocate. So you can seek outside counsel, but like I said, it's going to either be very costly or you're going to be put back on a wait list for months and months. So at this point, I had already waited 8 months for the DNA results to come back. I find out that he says, okay, even though we have the DNA now and all these other things, it's not looking like it's going to work in your favor. So I was honest with him and I said, it doesn't feel like you are advocating for me, and I know my own rights here and I know that I deserve representation, so I'm going to look for outside counsel. So when I did find that there was a 5-month waiting list, I did have to really evaluate what was best for my mental health, because I just moved to a new city. I've been waiting all these months, just dragging on this process. Meanwhile, I feel like I'm the only one that's suffering the consequences of this, and no one else is being held accountable for this. And to be quite honest, that's kind of like a secondary reason why I started making these videos, because my perpetrators were never held accountable and they probably will never be held accountable, because I had to make that choice that, am I going to wait, so it's 8 months out, am I going to wait 5 more months just to have a meeting with someone to discuss whether or not this can go through? And at this point, that's not my priority. My priority is getting what I need to get done for myself, and for me that looks like my education, that looks like my relationship with my family and friends, that looks like gaining stability in a community, and for right now that's the best thing for me. With that being said, I strongly urge anyone who is considering this back and forth of what should I do, what's best for me, to educate yourself about the statute of limitations in your state. For me, it was 20 years, so that is a really long time to think about what you want to do and what's best for you. And there's no reason to act in a rash way when you're dealing with something so serious, unless it's a life or death situation that you need to figure out right now. As long as you're safe in the moment, I urge people to take their time and think about what's best for them, because a lot of people on the outside of these situations have a lot of opinions about what should be done and what shouldn't be done. But until you really experience it yourself, it's hard to have a lens that's really realistic about what's the best and least painful way to heal from this process. To conclude, let's discuss how to move on after not getting those legal results that may be feeling like you're holding your perpetrators accountable, and how to move on in daily life knowing that these perpetrators are walking around enjoying their life. So one thing that I think about is this experience for me is not going to go away. It's a part of my story and I'm going to embrace that. In the same light, what these people have done is also not going to go away. And that's something that someone who has perpetrated acts of violence is going to have to live with until they choose to deal with it, or until the rest of their life. So that gives me a little bit of solace. Maybe that's a little cynical, but knowing that, I know what you did, you know what you did, and to me, that's honestly enough accountability. I knew my perpetrators, so I reached out to them in a letter, which this was a little bit of how I held them accountable as well. I said, this is how I'm feeling, this is how you made me feel, and this is how I feel that you wronged me. And I honestly said, I am sorry that you are feeling so much anger and hate and whatever pain is going on with you that you felt the need to act out violently. And I just said, please, in the future, respect those around you more than to take it out on them. And I feel like that was very powerful because I said, I don't hate you. I wish that you would change your ways, but it's not my responsibility. And I said, I know that I am going to go on to be a successful person. And if you choose not to change your ways, then there's nothing I can do about that. But all I can do is ask you to please reconsider your actions because they are damaging and they change the trajectory of my life and they can change the trajectory of anyone else's life like that. That was one of my coping mechanisms. Obviously, not everyone knows their perpetrators. Not everyone has. I knew that I was going to be safe when doing that. So, or at least I had a pretty good feeling that I would be safe, that they weren't going to come at me again. So, that's not always the safest bet. And I think that definitely ask a therapist before you do that. And then just making these videos, feeling like I have the power through experience to educate other people to possibly prevent or help soothe the pain of these kind of experiences. That is enough for me. This is better to me. Feeling comfortable in my own skin and feeling like I can have open conversation about these things is better to me than any sentence that could have been given through a trial. Now, with that being said, I'm not against trials. I think it's wonderful when people have the right people in their favor. They have the right DA, the right detective, the right resources. Definitely, I support you. That is wonderful. I'm happy that some people get accountability legally. But realistically, in this country, I don't feel like we're there yet. And so I'm satisfied knowing that there are other outlets such as this, such as group therapy, such as survivor organizations, such as Take Back the Night and things like that, that give a voice that isn't given through the legal process. All right, that's all I have for today. I know it took me a little longer to upload this video. I'm trying to be more consistent, but I am in school. I do have a job, so I just had to take a little break to take care of some organizational things. But I did want to mention that since I've made my last video, I passed my 1-year anniversary of surviving my second assault, and although it was very emotional for me, it was very, very, very validating, and I got to share that day with my mom, and I'm just feeling really thankful this year. So thank you so much for watching. I'm going to try to be more up to date on my videos. Hopefully there will be one coming soon, and I will be back. Thank you so much for listening. Again, comment, like, subscribe, email me. I will talk to you soon.